So I thought, since we're all in lockdown and everyone's meant to have a little bit more free time, we would take you through what we do with a thoroughbred in the first week. So this is Mary. She came to us already spelled. We're really lucky to work in with Lindy from Triple R, and she spells horses that she gets before they come to us, and then we help to find them a home. So Mary's had a nice big spell and has come to us out of the paddock. So this is day one. Some of them we do lunge, some we don't. We just normally go both ways, walk, trot and canter. And as you can see here, Mary's not that fussed on cantering, but she hasn't done anything wrong under saddle. We don't make a huge deal about which lead they're on or what's happening. We just sort of try and get the walk, trot and the canter out of the way and get them going both ways, so that we can see if they're going to do anything naughty before we hop on and have a little spin and see what they can do. So obviously a little bit spooky at the puddles, and not really wanting to go forward into canter, but otherwise hasn't really done anything wrong. So big tick, and we just hop on then and away we go. So for our first ride on any horse, we make sure there's always someone there holding the horse. So I've got control of the rein while Em gets on. We don't normally make them stand. Mary has stood longer than what a lot of them would, and then I just ask them to walk off being the leader, and they normally just follow us, and then we check that Em feels okay on top, and when she thinks she's right, we sort of just do a little circle, and then Em just sort of heads off on her own and I hobble out of the way. For our first ride, it's just sort of about seeing where they're at. We don't ask anything of them in terms of pressure or contact or anything like that. In a lot of instances, they haven't had their teeth done before their first ride. Unfortunately, we aren't able to have the dentist there every day of the week, so Mary is still waiting to have her teeth done for this ride, and also her feet need a trim, but we just sort of hop on and do a walk, trot and a canter on each rein to see where they're at and how they're going, and that way we can make a basic plan of what to do, what we're going to work on and where we're going to go from ride one. With our off the trackers, we don't normally push the issue of them standing for the first ride. We normally let them settle in and work it out, and then once they've got it sorted, we'll work on standing at the mounting block and under saddle, and we also don't get on anything without a neck strap. That's one of our must-haves. So when we ask them to canter for the first ride, we sort of just let the trot run along a little bit and encourage them into the canter instead of sitting and asking for the canter like you would on a normal horse, because they're not used to that, obviously. And as you can see here, Em just stays a little bit lighter in the saddle and off their back a little bit. Again, they're not always used to carrying weight, so we stay off their back and just let them roll along underneath us and get them a little bit comfortable, and then we just change the rein. Here I've turned the audio off, but Em's saying just having a little walk break, and then we head the other way. So I think going this way, this isn't her good rein, and it does take us a couple of goes to get it, which can be a big thing with some horses. They are either left or right-handed, so Mary's left-handed and not that keen on picking up the right rein. So we asked a couple of times on the circle just to see if it was a fluke or not, but obviously not a fluke. She didn't pick it up. So before we go to the using the pole tactic, We try, you think about riding in a square, and as you turn the corner, you ask for the canter, which helps them pick up that lead and encourages them to turn and pick up the lead that you've asked for. So she's got it there, so she used that corner, picked up that lead, and then we just let them canter around, tell them they're good, and give them a big pat once they get it. And then that's it for ride 1. We've done a walk, a trot and a canter on both reins, and everything's gone pretty well. So we leave it at that and call it a day, and move on to day 2. We like to make sure when we're done for the day with all the horses, they get a pat. So you can see here, Em gives Mare a pat, and then we always finish walking on a long rein so that they understand they're done and they can chill out. And it just is a really important thing to teach them as well, walking on a long rein. So ride 2, we normally try and get on by ourselves. They might be a little bit fidgety or a little bit anxious, but we see how we go. So Em has a go by herself, and sort of gets to a certain point and then it doesn't work. So I just come over and hold Mary so that Em can get on, and then away she goes. So again, she was a little bit fidgety, so we didn't force the issue of standing. We just sort of let it happen. I find if you tend to force it with these guys that don't understand, it just makes the situation worse, not better for you. So ride 2, we work on things that we identified might have been problems or issues in ride 1. We also put a little bit more pressure on contact-wise and see how they handle that. And I think you'll see in this clip, Mary handles it quite well and starts a little bit inconsistent, as to be expected, but there is some nice moments in there. She isn't the biggest moving horse. She does have quite little pokey movement, but she still tries her harder and has a really awesome temperament, which is really important. What we really focus on, and what I find really, really important when you're introducing contact to the thoroughbreds, is that they never feel trapped or blocked, I suppose. So we always have one soft rein. So here in the video, Em's holding her inside rein just with a little bit of a firm contact, and then just quietly talking with her outside rein, just squeezing the fingers and encouraging Mary to understand what we're asking. So you can see here she just starts to understand it, and then as she understands what we want, the outside hand's just soft, and it's a reward for doing the right thing. And then as she pops back up above the contact, the outside hand is just talking and squeezing again and encouraging her to come round so that she understands she won't be annoyed by the outside rein squeezing when she's doing the right thing, and when she's doing the wrong thing, the outside hand just quietly talks to her. Obviously there's lots of different ways to do it. This is just how we do it, and I find it works really well. They don't feel trapped or stressed or worried if you just sort of grab up both reins really quickly, because obviously they're not used to that. So we're cantering for the second ride. So she wants to be a little bit on the forehand and lean down and sort of bear down on the bit. So the first ride we sort of just ignore it and let them cruise along. The second ride we encourage them to sit up a little bit, and if that means they pop out of the bridle, they pop out of the bridle, and that's not a major. It's better that they're sitting up and not bearing down on the forehand so much, which makes it not comfortable for anyone. We also sit on their back a little bit more. You can see here she just falls back into trot, so that's okay. Not a major. We just let her trot and go back to working on contact and cruising along. So we're just going to have a go at our canter transitions again. So we do the exact same thing we did in ride 1. We ask on the circle and just see how they go, and if they don't pick it up, we go back to the square exercise. And obviously she's remembered a little bit from yesterday because she got it on her second go today. which is really helpful. And then same thing as we did on going the other way, just encourage her to not be quite so much on the forehand. It doesn't matter if she pops out of the bridle, tell her she's super, and just let her canter around, keep cantering on this rein so that she gets used to it and starts to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. And then back to trot, and just again asking for that little bit of contact and a little bit of roundness, and then a second go at getting that canter lead, which she didn't get first go. So we'll try again next time round and hopefully pick it up. Repetition is a really big thing, as well as keeping them calm so that they can understand the exercise, because when they get a bit tense and a bit stressed, it tends to just sort of override everything. So there we go, she's got it on the second go again, and then we just let her canter around, tell her she's a good girl, and hope that she remembers that for next time. So just like in ride 1, we always try and finish on a good note. It's really important to not do too much with them. Keep it simple, especially when they've come out of the paddock or even off the track. They're not used to this sort of work. So always back to finishing on a long rein, so they enjoy the stretch at the end and know that they're done. So this is ride 3. So today we're going to see how Mary goes jumping. So as you can see, ride 3, Em was able to get on by herself, and although she moved straight away, she still stood at the mounting block for Em to get on. So with the jumping, we just do a really basic warm-up. So Em's going to walk, trot, and canter each rein before we start our jumping. So we always start basic, no matter what we know or don't know. We always start with walking over the pole, which allows them to think about it, have a look, and just really sets them up for understanding what we want them to do. It also means it's a lot slower, so if they want to have a look or perhaps have a spook or go sideways, we're able to control it a lot more, in the sense that they perhaps don't get away with it, so that they start off with good habits instead of bad. And once they've got it a couple of times at the walk, we let them cruise around. So you can see here, Mary perhaps looks a little bit ouchy. She got her feet trimmed the morning of this video. We try where possible to keep them without shoes on. A, it's makes it easier in the long run, and B, it's also good for our budget. But unfortunately with her it wasn't the case, and after this ride she got shoes on, or the next day she got shoes on. So you can see here she's quite happy to just trot along over the pole, cruising along, just taking it all in her stride. Like I said, she has been pretty cool. What I think is also really important to remember is that while she may have quite little movement, it also improves with time and work as well. So just because this is what you're seeing today, ride 3, doesn't mean that that's the finished product. So she's trotted over the rail a few times, so now we just trot round to the cross and see what happens. We just sort of let them cruise in, try not to be too fast. We trot our horses for a while until they feel confident and start taking us to the fence. I think it's really important that they're confident, otherwise you rush them too much and things go wrong. So again, just coming round to trot the cross and looking pretty cute. Something else that's really important to remember is that just because they fell over the poles on their first day doesn't mean that they're not going to jump. Sometimes they'll fall over them and then they come out the next day or the next time jumping and really impress us. And sometimes they're just amazing from the first ride. So she's trotting over the cross a few times. And then when we think we've got the cross sorted, we head to a nice basic little vertical. You can see she's going to come round to it, the one closest to the road here. We always make sure it's got a ground rail or a nice little line. So this one's got a little half up, half down rail, and she just cutely pops over it, which is really sweet. So if they jump that well, that's awesome. And we come around to it again, just to make sure they've got the confidence up. If they don't jump that well or if something goes wrong, we always jump that and then come back to the cross. It just helps to keep them confident and make it a good experience for them. But she jumped it well, so we're heading straight back round to it, and she pops it much cuter this time. She understands the job. And so we head up to the jump with the scary feel, looks at it a little bit, but another cute little pop over it. So she's a really good girl. And because she's done that, we head around to the little oxer to see how she goes with that. Same thing, little look. Him gives her a little kick and she's just popped over. Really, really cool little mare. So because she did that really well, we always give her a walk, give her a big pat, tell her she's a little legend. And then we do the whole course again and put it together just as 4 jumps. So she'll go around again and we'll see how she goes. So I think coming up to this jump here, she does knock the rail, which again, she's a baby, first time jumping, so she's doing pretty well, handles it well, and then pops around the rest of the course like an absolute champion. And that's it for ride 3. So this is ride 4. We're heading down the road. As you can see, she's getting much better at standing by the mounting block, and today even stands once Em's on, which is, Em thinks really good, and so do I, so it just takes time for them to work it out. So when we're going down the road, we always take a babysitter for the first time. So Em's on Mary, who's having her first ride. And there's another horse, Hampton, who's not in the picture, who Janine's on. He's also having his first ride down the road. And then I'm on Tony, who's the big brave, just turned 3-year-old, who's going as the babysitter and chief film crew. So through the puddle, Hampton, good boy. Heading down the road, obviously we have to do the gate, so quite often we'll see if one of the new horses wants to do the gate or how they get on, and then if they don't want to stand, we get the babysitter to do the gate. But Mary nailed the gate today, and then pushes it shut, but we don't have to latch it. There's no dogs here today, so they won't try and escape, so we just push it like that and it's all good, and we're off on our adventure. So coming up here on the right hand side is a little drain and then a bank we like to walk up and down. It's really good to test out to see what they're like. Again, normally we'd get the babysitter to go first, but because I was filming and we want to show you guys what we do, poor Mary gets thrown in the deep end and we get her to go first. So she'll come across to it now. Tony's ear's in the way. So you can see they have to drop down and then go up that hill. So Mary comes up to it and isn't too sure on what we want her to do. Some of them aren't, they haven't been down it, so she just gets a little bit worried and sort of goes backwards, sideways a couple of times. So we just, really important, keep your hands nice and soft, and just keep leg on and encouraging them to walk forward, and then she understands what we want her to do. And she's away, and then of course Hampton has a babysitter, so he's like, yep, no worries, and he actually came with Mary, so really likes her, so he's quite happy to follow her, and Tony's quite happy to not have to do these silly things, he reckons. So and then we come down the other side. Again, nice soft hands, just encouraging them and letting them to work it out for themselves, where they're going to put their feet and what they're going to do. And then we just do it one more time so that they've got it sorted. And then this time she's much better, straight down the bank, happy to cruise up, and then around the other side. So here we're just cruising along. We've gone past the scary cows, and there's a scary bit of tin on the fence up there, which some of them like to shy at. Mary was pretty brave. She's pretty happy cruising along in the front. She's not worried about needing a babysitter, which is really nice. She's pretty independent, and she's just cruising along on a long rein through the water. There's water on both sides here, and the ducks quite often fly out, which can be pretty scary for them, but she's quite happy to just cruise along. Little ears pricked, as you can see, and she's off on an adventure. So we're off trotting and having a go. Mary's got front shoes on now, so she's good to go. happily trotting along at the back, not fussed, not bothered, and we quite often try and change it round and put them at the front or in the middle or at the back, just to make sure they're happy going in all different places and not going to pull or kick or fuss, and that way it helps us identify what they're sort of like. Really good filming from me, one-handed. Luckily Tony's really good at just following the others, and it made my job a whole heap easier. So we're just about to go for a canter now. We're really lucky to be able to ride in the national park and take the horses up here. It's really good for them. So we're cantering along. Again, Mary's happy to be at the front, and although you can't see from where I am because Tony's slowing at the back, she's just happy to cruise along on a long rein and isn't too fussed about being at the front or pulling or anything like that. Good video footage there. And just cruising along, enjoying it. Something that's really important to us is walking on a long rein. So we've just pulled up from our canter here and we're turning round. And obviously heading for home, it can be a bit tougher for some of them, but Mary handled it really well, just making sure they walk on a long rein even after they've had a canter back Hampton going up and down a bank. Again, something really good for them. And Mary just cruising along, enjoying her long rein walk home. Tony, you're ruining my video. Thank you. Good job, team. Tony, don't go under that. So another little exercise here. They have to step up the bank, up, and then there's a bit of a drop down on the other side. So up and down, and then turn around and come back. Again, up, down the bank, brave pony, and then Em decides to go over the puddle as well, which Mary was awesome at, over the puddle. And then again, just walking home on a long rein, which we think is, again, really, really important. Nearly home. We're just on the last little straight, which is right next to the freeway, and the train tracks are also just on the other side. So it's really good. The horses get used to all sorts of noise and traffic and all different things, and again you can see Mary just cruising along on the way home. So job well done, and that's pretty much what we do with our thoroughbreds for the first week.